Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial, we're going to make a pink Halloween scene glitter tumbler. In my last bundle with Gracefully Created, we did your typical color Halloween scene with the blacks, orange, yellow, and purples. And I thought about it for a minute and I was like, there's a lot of followers that love pink, and I am sure a pink Halloween scene element sheet would be pretty awesome, right? So I went on a search and found some elements that I really like and created these sheets so you can create your own scene on a tumbler or a tray. We're using a 24-ounce prepped plump from TIPSY Magnolia. The prepped plumps are already sanded and have a base coat of paint on them for you, so all you have to do is grab that cup and get to designing, especially when you're using light colored glitters or your whites and opals. We are going to be using LITTY TITTY from PDB Creative Studio. I'm using the glitter glue from Crystal Company to apply our glitter. I put on a pretty generous coat because this is a chunky mix, and then we're going to go in with the .015 cut. Of course, you can just use one of the cuts, but I feel like combining the two just adds a little bit of extra dimension to the tumbler, especially when you're holding it in your hand. I really like to use the epoxy method to apply my glitter, but sometimes it's just convenient to grab a glue bottle instead of having to mix your epoxy if you don't already have some out. The only downfall to using a glue is whenever I try to flatten out my glitter, sometimes it can just kind of make a couple of spots and I'll have to go back and fix that. Just a little compromise for convenience, and I'm totally okay with that. So I rolled my glitter or my tumbler so it would be flat and we can minimize the amount of epoxy that we have to do and sanding to get this nice and smooth. I allowed my glitter to dry. I did seal that in with Rust-Oleum matte clear coat. Glue typically doesn't have as much as a grip on it as epoxy does when you're applying your glitter. So anytime I use a glitter glue, I always seal it in with Rust-Oleum matte clear coat, so I don't have any movement of my glitter whenever I'm applying that epoxy. I gave it one layer of epoxy and then sanded it really well. We got a nice smooth coat on that first application. So we're going to go ahead and add in our smoky pink, or whatever you want to call it, pink clouds. I think I had about 15 milliliters of a little extra incorporated epoxy, and we're adding in POMPEII pigment powder from PDB Creative Studio. This has a little bit of a shift to it. You can see it goes from pink to purple, and I thought it was a perfect match for our images. Now, 15 milliliters was absolutely overkill. It's just what I had left over and not any other projects going on. But you can definitely do about 5 milliliters of epoxy for a 24-ounce cup, and you'll have more than enough to add on your clouds or your waves. Before we started adding this on, I did give a very thin layer of epoxy so that this can have movement once we apply it. Now, a lot will go in with a heat gun and just kind of blow those spots out. I like to go in with my gloved hand, spread them out just a little bit, just kind of speed up the process and help them spread out a little bit more, I guess. And then once I have spread them out a little bit, I'm going to go in with my heat gun and blow them out from the center to make them look more like waves or clouds. Once that epoxy layer has dried, I'm going to grab my element sheets and cut out the ones that I want to use. When you're applying your decals, be sure to try and avoid touching the back side of the clear part. If you have to touch them at all, try to where the white of the decal is. The clear portion is going to show your fingerprints, especially if you're on a dark cup. On a light cup like this, it really doesn't make that much of a difference, but I always try to be cautious anytime I'm applying decals. The best way to avoid that is to use the hinge method. You trim off a little bit of that backing, put the decal in place, and then use your squeegee tool to flatten everything out as you're removing the back off the tumbler. If you have smaller decals like this, I'll remove them from the back, kind of push them over to the edge of it a little bit to give me a grip, and then place them just like so. I know you probably cringed if you have heard me say so many times to not overlap your decals because you do not want that clear portion to overlap. It will show under epoxy. It may not be super visible, but especially if you take the tumbler out in the sun, which many people are going to do, you're going to see where your decals overlap. So rather than leave it as it is, I'm going to trim away the clear portion of a couple of these elements that's overlapping others. That way when we apply our epoxy, it's going to disappear just like everything else. Once we finished adding on all of our decals and trimming away that excess, it was time for our final layers of epoxy. I do 2 final layers of epoxy, one a little extra incorporated turbo, which is their fast set, and then I do a final coat of the regular set epoxy. This tumbler turned out amazing. The LITTY TITTY glitter is white with a pink and yellow shift, so indoors you see more of the yellow, and it just pops with the color of the windows on here. So everything just pulls together so nicely. I'm glad that we used the pink clouds in the background instead of a gray or a white. And that a little extra incorporated epoxy shines on every single tumbler or project, not just the dark ones. If y'all have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. All materials I have used will be listed in the description with some discount codes. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. That is all for today. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.